welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, you sent over this, well, frankly, overwhelming stack of sources. We're talking global esoteric traditions, centuries apart.
It is a lot, isn't it? But when you look closely, there's this surprising thread running through Kabbalah, Gnosticism, Hermeticism, even Babylonian astrology.
A kind of grand unified theory of reality?
You could put it that way. Our mission today, really, is to act as your guide through this. We want to distill the origins, the meaning, the symbolism behind key figures, Seth, Noah, and concepts like the Philosopher's Stone.
How do we even approach that?
By focusing on the core operating principle they all seem to share. Celestial correspondence. The idea that everything mirrors everything else. Macrocosm, microcosm. As above, so below.
Right, the Hermetic principle. So we're looking for the operating manual for existence that these traditions believe they'd found.
Exactly, and it connects things you wouldn't expect. The golden ratio, this idea of aether, sacred geometry, linking Babylonian, Greek, Egyptian, even Vedic systems.
It's not just history then, it's a whole cosmology.
It is. And it posits that every single external form you encounter, everything you see, is actually a physical symbol. It corresponds to a specific degree of spiritual life.
Okay, that's a big concept to start with.
It is. And to really get into this deep dive, you have to approach it with a specific understanding of human nature. They saw man as having this triple nature.
Triple nature.
Physiological, the body. Psychological, the mind. And divine, the spirit or soul. And this threefold structure, you see it reflected everywhere. The tree of life, for example. Even in the figures who supposedly transmitted this ancient wisdom.
Okay, so let's unpack that lineage. Where does this tradition say the knowledge came from? Who are the key transmitters, the messengers?
Well, the figure of Hermes is central, but it's complicated. The sources talk about three distinct yet sort of continuous figures who carry that title. Hermes or Mercury.
Three Hermeses.
Kind of. The first, they say, was Enoch. The biblical Enoch who walked with God. Okay. This was pre-flood.
Before the Great Flood, okay.
Then the second was Noah, the flood survivor. He carried that primordial wisdom through the catastrophe, ensuring it wasn't lost.
Makes sense. Preserving the knowledge line.
Exactly. And the third, the one most associated with the tradition we call Hermeticism, was the Egyptian Hermes Trismegistus.
Trismegistus. Thrice greatest. I always wondered about that name.
It tells you everything. He was called triplex because he embodied three roles simultaneously. King, philosopher, and prophet. He was seen as the founder of the post-flood civilization in Egypt, taking that ancient wisdom from Enoch and Noah and really codifying it.
Codifying it into what?
Into the Hermetic doctrine of correspondences, things like the Emerald Tablet. That famous text is attributed to him. It lays out that as above, so below principle.
Okay, so that's the Hermetic line. But Gnosticism, they had a slightly different take on the origins, right? Starting right after Adam.
They did. For many Gnostic groups, the key figure right after Adam wasn't Enoch, but Adam's son, Seth.
Seth, okay.
Seth is huge in Gnostic texts. We have writings, like the Apocryphon of John, which details 7 specific revelations given to Seth.
7 revelations? Interesting. Is this the same Seth as in Genesis?
Well, yes, the biblical Seth. But here's where it gets fascinatingly complex and maybe a bit subversive.
How so?
The biblical Seth shares his name, a homonym, with the Egyptian god Seth, or Set, the adversary of Osiris, the chaotic force.
Oh, right, the bad guy in that myth.
Pretty much. And remember, many Gnostics view the Old Testament God, Yahweh, not as the ultimate divine, but as the demiurge, a flawed, lesser creator who made the material world.
So they connected Adam's son Seth with the Egyptian antagonist Seth. Why?
It suggests a deliberate inversion. Gnostics often elevated figures that were peripheral or even negative in Orthodox traditions. By linking their revealer, Seth, son of Adam, with the Egyptian Seth, they might have been subtly aligning themselves with forces outside the conventional structure, perhaps even antagonistic to the creator of the material world they rejected.
Wow, okay, so that's a very different framing. The lineage then continues through the patriarchs. Noah's still in there.
Oh yes, Noah preserved the physical lineage. And then you get to Abraham. He's crucial for establishing the covenant. But the Kabbalistic view sees it in very specific, almost physical terms.
More than just a promise.
Much more. The covenant with the one God is symbolized physically by the 10 fingers and 10 toes.
The fingers and toes, why?
Because they are the human body's representation of the 10 Sephiroth, the 10 emanations of God on the tree of life. It's the microcosm reflecting the macrocosm again.
And the physical act.
The circumcision of the flesh. The rite of Abraham. The sources say this physically inscribes the spiritual law onto the human body. It binds the physical the sensual directly to the highest spiritual reality. It's a very embodied spirituality.
Okay, body and cosmos linked through number and ritual. How does this line then lead to the idea of the ultimate spiritual figure, the King Messiah, or Israel the Messiah?
This is where Hellenistic philosophy, especially through thinkers like Philo of Alexandria, really merges with the older Kabbalistic ideas.
Philo, right. He blended Jewish thought with Greek philosophy.
Exactly, and he heavily influenced how the concept of the Messiah was understood. The Messiah is seen as the Metatron.
Metatron, like an angel.
Sort of the angel of the Lord, but more than just an angel. Not God the Father, the Ancient of Days, but a distinct divine emissary. A legatus, descended in flesh.
Yeah.
And Philo, drawing on Plato, identified this Metatron figure with the Logos.
The Logos, reason, the word, that's a huge concept in philosophy, and later, obviously, in Christianity.
Absolutely crucial. Let's focus on that for a second, because that Platonic and Philonic idea of the Logos really laid the intellectual groundwork for the Christian Trinity.
How did Plato conceive of it?
Plato didn't see the divine as just one monolithic thing. He described a threefold structure. The first cause, the ultimate unknowable source. Then reason, the Logos, the active intelligence. And finally, the soul or spirit of the universe.
Three principles.
Three archetypal principles, he called them. When Philo combined this with his idea of the Logos as God's active, intervening reason, you get the blueprint for the Father, Son, Logos, and Holy Spirit. The Logos is the second cause, carrying out the will of the first cause.
But the Gnostics, even though they engaged with the figure of Christ, saw him very differently, didn't they? Through this anti-material lens.
Completely different perspective. That's the key distinction. For Gnostics, Christ was the child of light, sometimes called Monogenēs, the only begotten.
Child of light.
And they linked him directly back to Adam. But not just the biblical Adam. Adam the light, the Anthropos, the primordial spiritual human.
So Christ was a manifestation of this original spiritual essence.
Yes. And their goal wasn't faith or salvation in the traditional sense. It was gnosis, direct experiential knowledge. This knowledge was meant to lead the soul upward, escaping the material world.
Escaping matter. So what about resurrection? That's central to Christianity.
They saw bodily resurrection as an illusion. Why resurrect the prison? The material world, for them, was fundamentally corrupt, made by that flawed demiurge. True resurrection was the spirit awakening and achieving release from the physical body, from matter itself.
Okay, wait. You said they saw the creator god of Genesis as, like, an antagonist, the demiurge. How do they square that with Christ, who presumably came from the true God actually appearing in a physical body? That seems contradictory.
It's a major point of Gnostic theology, and yeah, it seems tricky. They often interpreted the incarnation itself as a kind of illusion or temporary disguise. The physical body was just a vehicle Christ used to descend into the darkness and bring the gnosis, the knowledge needed for escape. It wasn't about validating the material world, but about rescuing the sparks of light trapped within it.
So the body was just a tool, not the point.
Precisely. And to explain why the world was a trap in the first place, they developed these really elaborate creation myths, which often involve powerful and sometimes problematic feminine divine figures.
Feminine divine, like Sophia.
Exactly. It starts, according to texts like the Apocryphon of John, with the ultimate unknown Father. He mirrors himself, sees his reflection in the light water around him.
Okay.
That self-recognition, his thought, immediately becomes an independent entity. Enoia, thought, a female principle.
So God's thought becomes a separate being.
Essentially, yes. And Enoia then expands, generating the Pleroma, the fullness, which is the totality of the divine realm, filled with pairs of emanations called Aeons.
Aeons, like divine powers or attributes.
Yes, primal, eternal emanations. They represent the complete divine potential before any material world exists. But then comes the tragedy. Sophia, wisdom, who is the last and lowest of the Aeons.
She messes up.
Basically, she acts impulsively outside the divine plan. She tries to create something on her own without her partner Aeon. Her flawed creation, born from ignorance and passion, is a demiurge, Yaldabaoth, the lesser creator god who then makes the flawed material cosmos.
So wisdom's mistake leads to the creation of the physical universe and its flawed ruler.
Wow, it's a dramatic cosmology. And this idea of a powerful, active, sometimes disruptive feminine principle, it has really strong parallels elsewhere, like in the Vedic tradition with Shakti.
Shakti, tell me about that connection.
Shakti is the Sanskrit word for power, energy, the dynamic, active force in creation. You see it in the Shiva-Shakti dynamic. Shiva is pure consciousness, stillness. Shakti is the energy that makes everything happen.
Okay, the active principle.
Right. And a key example is the goddess Durga. She's sometimes called Vaishnavi Shakti, the creative power of Vishnu. And Durga manifests in forms like Mahakali, Mahalakshmi, Mahastaravali, representing the three gunas, the fundamental qualities of material nature.
And the Gnostic connection.
Well, Mahakali, one aspect of this divine feminine power, is also often identified with Maya.
Maya, illusion.
Exactly. The illusory energy of Vishnu that veils the ultimate reality and binds us to the cycle of suffering. So you have Sophia, whose actions lead to the flawed material world, and Maya Shakti, the powerful feminine energy that both creates and potentially obscures reality. It's a striking parallel across cultures.
It really is. This idea of shared archetypes seems central. You see it popping up everywhere, like with the figure of Mithras.
Absolutely. That lion-headed serpent figure, Yaldabaoth, the Gnostic demiurge, it looks remarkably similar to figures in Persian and Mithraic art.
Yeah.
Specifically, the figure of Aeon.
Aeon, meaning time.
Boundless time, or eternity, often depicted as lion-headed and serpent-bound. And the very term the Gnostics used for their divine emanations, Aeon, clearly comes from this Persian and Hellenistic concept of vast personified time cycles. These aren't just local gods. They seem to be avatars of universal principles, maybe aspects of the Anthropos, that primordial human or oversoul idea.
And it wasn't just the Middle East and Europe. You mentioned Quetzalcoatl in Mexico.
Right. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, a central creator deity in Mexican mythology, closely linked to their sacred calendar, the Book of Fate, the Tonala model.
A feathered serpent creator god.
Yeah. And finding these similar archetypes, light bringers, creators, sometimes self-sacrificing figures like Mithras or Quetzalcoatl, across such huge distances in space and time, it really bolsters that esoteric idea of a single primordial wisdom tradition underlying everything, a primordial synthesis.
Which brings us back to the language of creation itself. Names like El Olam and that formula, AGLA.
El Olam means the everlasting God or God of eternity. And AGLA is a fantastic example of Kabbalistic method. It's not just a name, it's a notaricon.
A what now?
A notaricon. It's an acronym formed from the first letters of a phrase. AGLA comes from the Hebrew phrase, Atah Gibur Leolam Adonai.
Meaning?
Yours is the greatness forever, Lord, or Thou art mighty forever, O Lord. The key word there is Leolam, forever, eternal.
Okay, so it encodes eternity. Where was it used?
Crucially, the sources specify that AGLA is a formula particularly potent in the world of Asaya.
Asaya, that's the lowest world in the Kabbalistic system, right? The material world.
Exactly. The final physical expression of creation. Now this connects directly to the Tetragrammaton, the four-letter name of God, Yod-He-Vav-He, YHVH.
How does Asaya relate to YHVH?
Each letter corresponds to one of the four Kabbalistic worlds. Yod is Atziluth, emanation. He is Braya, creation. Vav is Yetzirah, formation. And the final He corresponds to Asaya, the world of action, the material plane.
So Asaya is the final He.
Right. So by using the formula AGLA, which emphasizes eternity, Leolam, in Asaya, the final He, the Kabbalist is essentially grounding the infinite eternal nature of God directly into the finite physical reality we experience. It's about bringing that divine power down to earth.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got the lineage, the archetypes, the divine names. Now let's get into the structure, the blueprint of creation itself. Kabbalah's tree of life and the 10 Sephiroth.
Right, this is the map. The blueprint showing how the divine emanates down into matter. The Sephiroth are described as 10 globes or spheres of light, numbers out of nothing, originating from the Ein Sof Ar, the limitless light.
And you said they correspond to the fingers and toes.
Yes, that physical mirroring reinforces the idea that the human body is a microcosm built on the same pattern as the cosmos. The formator, the creator, uses these 10 attributes, these 10 emanations, to structure everything.
Can we look at a couple of key Sephiroth, like the very top one, Kether?
Kether, the crown. It's the absolute origin point. Pure, unmanifest will, the source of all potential ideas. The very first spark or ray of light from the Godhead before anything else takes form. Limitless potential.
And further down, Tifereth seems important.
Tifereth, or beauty, is central, literally and figuratively. It sits on the middle pillar of the tree. It's crucial for the soul's journey because it acts as the harmonizing center. It balances the forces from the two outer pillars.
The pillars of mercy and severity. What forces does Tifereth balance specifically? The sources mention Hod and Netzach.
Exactly. This balance is vital. Netzach, victory, is on the right pillar of mercy. It represents emotion, intuition, passion, the sort of instinctual dynamic drive.
Okay, the feeling side.
Right. And Hod, splendor, is on the left, pillar of severity. This represents the intellect, reason, logic, structure.
The thinking side.
Precisely. Tifereth, beauty, sits in the middle, directly connecting and harmonizing Netzach and Hod. It means true spiritual balance and beauty comes from integrating both feeling and intellect, passion and reason. If you lean too much one way, towards just cold logic, Hod, or just raw, unchecked emotion, Netzach, you're out of balance. Tifereth is the point of integration.
That makes a lot of sense. And connecting all these 10 spheres are the 22 paths.
Yes, the 22 paths are the connections between the Sephiroth. And these paths aren't just lines on a diagram. They correspond to the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet.
The letters themselves.
According to the Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, God literally formed creation using these letters, first forming them with his voice, impressing them onto the aether, the celestial air, with his breath.
Wow.
These letters were then arranged, the text says, like a wall surrounding a sphere. And this spherical wall had 231 gates, or doorways.
231 gates? What are they for?
They allow the combinations of the letters. Think of it like pairs of letters forming pathways. All of creation, every species, every substance, supposedly emerged from the specific combinations and utterances of these letter pairs through these gates.
That sounds incredibly complex. What's the deeper meaning behind 231 gates and how these letters move?
The implication is profound. It suggests that morality itself, good and evil, is actually encoded in the structure and movement of this divine language.
How?
The movement of this spherical wall of letters forming different combinations. Moving forward through the 231 gates, creating constructive permutations, was considered good. Moving backward, creating destructive or deconstructive combinations, was considered evil.
So reality is literally built from language, and misusing that language, even structurally, leads to bad outcomes.
That's the idea. It suggests a universe where language isn't just descriptive, it's fundamentally creative, and has inherent moral direction based on its structure and use.
Okay, from cosmic language to pure numbers, Pythagoras comes up a lot here. The number 7 seems particularly important.
7 was deeply sacred, especially concerning life itself. Pythagoras apparently observed, or it was believed, that babies born in the 7th month had a strong chance of survival, while 8th month babies often didn't.
Really? Why did he think that?
He saw 7 as the perfect blend of the masculine principle, represented by the number 3, and the feminine principle, represented by 4. 3 plus 4 equals 7. Harmony.
And 8.
8, being composed of 4 plus 4, was seen as purely feminine, perhaps lacking the necessary balance or activating spark needed for independent life at that stage. It suggests cosmic stability relies on this specific blend of forces symbolized by 7.
Interesting. What about the numbers 3, 6, and 9, and this idea of circular number?
Right, the circular numbers like 5, 6, and 10 are those that repeat their last digit when you square them. Like 6 times 6 is 36, ends in 6. 10 times 10 is 100, ends in 0, considered part of the 10 cycle. There's a pattern repetition there.
Okay. And how do 3, 6, and 9 relate to us?
They often relate back to that threefold nature of man we talked about. Spirit, mind, soul, the number 3. Often visualized as the triangle, the spiritual body. The spiritual reality, the triangle 3, descends into the physical form. The physical is often represented by the number 4, the square, the quaternary earth, air, fire, water. So you have the 3 descending into the 4.
And the golden ratio fits in here too, yeah?
Absolutely. The golden ratio, that perfect proportion found everywhere in nature, is seen as the mathematical formula for harmony and beauty. It dictates the structure of everything from shells to galaxies and supposedly the ideal proportions of the human body itself. It's the underlying code of creation's geometry.
So the journey from 3 spirit into 4 matter follows this divine proportion. What about the number 33? It comes up in esoteric context.
33 is very specific in some of these astrological sources. It's linked directly to fate, destiny, or karma, specifically regarding lifespan. It's said to be the sum total degrees, minutes, and seconds of the sun's motion that determines how long someone lives, but only if their lifespan is negatively impacted or afflicted by challenging planets, malefics, in their birth chart.
So it's a number that flags a karmically determined lifespan under specific negative astrological conditions.
Exactly. It shows how deeply numerology was woven into predictive astrology, linking abstract numbers to very concrete life outcomes.
Let's shift to geometry itself. Creation starts with the point, right? The dot.
Yes, the infinitesimal point, the dot. It's the symbol of the primal spirit, the initial spark, the germ of life. It's also associated with gold, or the sun. The very first motion isn't creation of something, but the movement of this point.
And that first movement creates.
The line. figure 18 in some texts. And since any line has to start and end somewhere, both beginning and end are points, dots, spirit underlies all extension.
Makes sense. What about the second motion?
The second fundamental motion creates the circle. Figure 19. The circle is called the most perfect line. It's the container, the boundary from which all other shapes and bodies can be formed.
The circle is the foundation of all form, and it implies cycles too, right?
Implicitly, yes. The circle represents wholeness, completion, eternal cycles. It definitely connects to the idea of the Ouroboros as a serpent eating its own tail. That symbol of infinity, self-consumption, and regeneration.
Okay. And we mentioned the triangle represents the spiritual body, spirit, mind, soul. How does this play out visually, like the Star of David?
Well, the Star of David, with its two interlocking triangles, is a powerful symbol of that union as above, so below. The upward pointing triangle, fire, spirit, meeting the downward pointing triangle, water, matter.
Okay.
But more simply, if you see a triangle depicted above a square, that's a direct symbol. The threefold spiritual body triangle descending into or manifesting within the fourfold physical form square on earth.
And for an individual?
And the sources mention that a person of truly exalted spiritual nature might be depicted with an aureole of clouds, and within that, a triangle made of flame containing an eye. That symbolizes the divine spirit manifesting through that individual.
Right, the all-seeing eye in the triangle. Okay, this leads us directly into Hermeticism again, named for Hermes Trismegistus, who inherited the wisdom from Enoch and Noah. The core idea is that correspondence.
Exactly. Hermeticism is the bridge. It connects the philosophy and cosmology to actual practice. It confirms that deep, intimate link between the microcosm of us human beings and the macrocosm, the universe.
And the goal is?
To perfect the microcosm, to make ourselves a perfect mirror of the divine order of the macrocosm. And this perfecting principle, this capacity to align oneself, is sometimes called telesma.
Telesma, what does that mean exactly?
It's tricky, but think of it as the perfect image, or the perfected will. It's the state of understanding and alignment that allows the practitioner, the magician or alchemist, to truly work with the cosmic forces, not against them, to embody the correspondences. Telesma is the power behind effective spiritual work.
And this work, crucially, isn't just mental. It's grounded in the physical world, right? Like the Emerald Tablet suggests.
Absolutely vital. The Emerald Tablet famously says, Nutrix eis est terra.
Which means?
Earth is its nurse. This is interpreted as a direct reference to Maya, the mythological mother of Mercury Hermes. And Maya was often identified with Sabal, the Earth Mother goddess.
So the Earth nurses what? The work, the stone.
Exactly. The implication is profound, especially compared to the Gnostics who wanted to escape matter. The Hermetic path says, no, spiritual realization, the great work, the philosopher's stone, must be nurtured by the physical earth. You can't achieve the heights without being grounded in the depths of matter. The stone needs the earth.
That's a key difference. How does Azoth fit in? You mentioned it earlier.
Azoth is often called the universal solvent, the mercury of the sages, the animating spirit hidden in matter. It's quicksilver, yes, but much more.
Okay.
In alchemical symbolism, the cedar tree is sometimes called the arbor mercurialis, the tree of Mercury. Now, arbor in Latin is feminine, so the cedar represents the feminine aspect of this mercurial Azoth principle.
Feminine Mercury.
Yes. And the cedar tree was also a symbol of eternity because its wood resists decay. King Solomon supposedly used it. So you have this volatile, feminine animating energy, Azoth, linked to something eternal and incorruptible. It connects the beginning and end of the work.
So alchemy isn't just about turning lead into gold in a lab. It has this dual nature.
A double face, yes. There's the operatio, the practical, hands-on laboratory work, trying to make physical gold, sure. But there's also the theoria, the inner spiritual work, transmuting the base self, the leaden personality, into the perfected golden self.
And both paths seek the same thing.
Both seek the philosopher's stone, also called the grand arcanum, that elusive substance or state of being that represents perfection, completion, incorruptibility.
And this inner work, the spiritual alchemy, it follows specific stages. You mentioned purification.
Yes, very defined stages, mirroring psychological and spiritual processes. It absolutely has to start with the nigredo.
The blackening.
The blackening, the darkening. It represents the initial state of chaos, the undifferentiated raw material. Psychologically, it's facing your shadow, dissolution, despair, the dark night of the soul. You have to go through this death, this putrefaction first.
Can't skip it.
No way. Only after the nigredo comes the albedo, the whitening.
Whitening.
Yes, this is the purification stage, where the blackened material or the soul is washed clean. purified by metaphorical mercurial waters or by fire. It represents achieving a first stage of clarity elimination, separating the subtle from the gross.
It sounds like a profound psychological process mapped onto chemical terms.
That's exactly how many interpret it. And it all comes back to understanding that triple nature of the human being, physiological, psychological, divine. The sources, like textonic philosophy, insist you must grasp this triplicity.
Body, mind, spirit again.
Yes. And they emphasize biogenesis. Life only comes from life. The real atoms aren't physical, they're spiritual sparks that instigate life. Our physical form is just the outward show, the phenomenal expression of the spirit that's incarnating.
So the ultimate goal is internal.
Ultimately, yes. It's about achieving kenonosis. That's a Neoplatonic term, and especially from Plotinus. It means union, unification with the Godhead. But not just some distant God out there. It's about identifying the soul with the Godhead that is immanent, that exists within the soul itself. The kingdom of God is within you, quite literally.
Okay. And these cosmologies also mapped out different levels of reality, right? Realms and dimensions?
Oh, yes. Typically, you see a structure of three main worlds, all contained within the ultimate deity. There's the superior world, the highest, purely spiritual realm, no materiality, home to the immortals, the archetypes.
Above the physical.
Right. Then below that is the inferior world. This is the realm of material substance, where we live, home to mortals, but also other entities like the demiurgy, the lesser creators or artisans and demons, beings tied to the elements or the earthly sphere.
And a third.
The third isn't so much a place as the underlying spiritual essence that connects and permeates everything. The divine presence within all worlds.
The book of Revelation, the Apocalypse, apparently has its own map of consciousness levels.
It provides a fascinating sequence, interpreted esoterically. When the seals are opened in the text, it's seen as suppressing the normal physical senses, the physical plane, called the fourth plane.
Okay, shutting down the physical.
Then, the psychic plane becomes active, intuition, subconscious impressions. But then, when the trumpets sound, this awakens higher centers, the noetic centers.
Noetic, meaning?
Related to the intellect, the higher mind. Nous. Accessing this plane puts a purely psychic consciousness on hold. You move from feeling intuition to direct intellectual or spiritual knowing.
And the highest level.
The ultimate realm is pure spirit, symbolized by the great breath or the world mother. This realm is connected to cosmic forces, the 7 pneumata or spiritual breaths associated with the moon, and the 5 pranas or life winds associated with the sun.
7 plus 5. 12.
Exactly 12 forces. And these 12 correspond directly to the 12 signs of the zodiac. The whole cosmic structure is mapped onto consciousness.
Which brings us squarely to astrology, the system that tracks these cosmic influences on us. Let's look at some planets. Jupiter.
Jupiter, the greater benefic, rules the 11th principle or the 11th house in a chart, considered diurnal, masculine, temperate. Physically, it governs things like the lungs, liver, blood, the reins.
And psychologically.
When well aspected, Jupiter brings magnanimity, generosity, prudence, justice, honesty, wisdom through expansion. But if Jupiter is afflicted,
meaning poorly placed or aspected,
yes, then it can lead to a profligate disposition, extravagance, poor judgment. The person might become a bigot, dogmatic, stubbornly sticking to wrong ideas, overexpansion without wisdom.
Okay, what about the opposite end? Saturn, the greater malefic.
Saturn, heavy hitter, rules the 12th principle, the 10th house. Cold, dry, traditionally seen as sinister, and deeply connected to karma and limitations. Time, structure, lessons.
Sounds grim. Any upside?
Oh, definitely. A well-placed Saturn gives her profound wisdom, patience, discipline, longevity, the ability to build lasting structures, leadership qualities, a strong sense of justice. But it has to be earned.
And if afflicted.
That's when you see the classic Saturnian challenges. Greed, avarice, melancholy, morbidity, fear, isolation, constant obstacles, bad karma manifesting. Physically, problems related to cold, dryness, blockages, often linked to the wind element, causing psychosomatic issues.
How do you deal with a difficult Saturn?
The sources are clear. Harmonizing Saturn requires immense self-discipline, humility, patience, and detachment. Accepting limitations and working steadily within them, facing reality.
Okay. Mars and Venus, the dynamic duo.
Right. Mars is pure, fiery, masculine energy, warlike. It governs action, assertion, courage, will, drive. It's the energy to do things.
But it can be destructive.
Terribly destructive, if not channeled properly. The source material actually says the right fuel for Mars is a desire for finding God's love, or using its strength, protecting the weak, a higher purpose.
And without that?
Then it becomes aggression, conflict, cruelty, rivalry, ruthlessness, achieving goals no matter the cost to others.
And Venus?
Venus is the opposite principle: attraction, harmony, beauty, relationship. Materially, the sources link Venus to specific substances, part of silver, also glass, coral, malachite.
Interesting specific correspondences. What about Mercury?
Mercury, the messenger. Intellect, communication, adaptability, dexterity. Materially, it rules quicksilver, obviously, but also tin and the emerald.
Emerald. Okay, so these planets aren't just abstract forces, they map onto specific materials too. And these systems look at vast stretches of time, right? Astrological ages.
Yes, based on the precession of the equinoxes, that slow wobble of the Earth's axis.
Which shifts the timing of the seasons against the background stars.
Exactly. So you have to distinguish the natural zodiac, which is the actual fixed star constellations like Aries, Taurus, etc., from the shifting or tropical zodiac, which starts every year at the spring equinox point, wherever that point happens to fall against the constellations.
And that point moves backward very slowly.
Right, about 1 degree every 72 years. So it takes roughly 2,160 years to move through one constellation, one age. And the sources actually give a specific prediction for the age of Aquarius.
Oh, when do they say it starts? We hear a lot about it now.
They calculated the actual entrance of the spring equinox point into the constellation Aquarius will be around the year 2658.
2658, so we're not quite there yet.
Not according to this calculation.
Yeah.
It implies that the Piscean age, the one we're in or just leaving, is still very much phasing out. And they sometimes refer to the Piscean age as the Dark Age, suggesting the shift into Aquarius will bring a new era of enlightenment, a clearer illumination of the mind by the celestial sun.
Fascinating. And this timing wasn't just cosmic, they used astrological timing for everyday predictions too, like marriage.
Absolutely. The qualities of the zodiac signs involved in a prediction chart were used to estimate timing.
How did that work?
If the key signs were movable signs, that's Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, the ones that start the seasons, it meant the event would happen quickly, weeks or maybe even days.
Fast-acting signs.
Right. If the signs were bicorporeal or mutable Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, the dual-natured signs, it suggested a medium time frame, months, maybe weeks.
Okay.
And if the signs were fixed, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, the signs of stability and endurance, it pointed to a longer time frame, years or at least many months. It was a practical way to use the nature of the signs to forecast timing.
Okay, moving from prediction to practice. Magic. Chaldean, Babylonian, Greek, Egyptian traditions all had forms of magic, but it wasn't always about, casting spells for personal gain.
Correct. There's a crucial distinction often made between lower magic, thaumaturgy, which might be for material effects, and theurgy, which means divine work.
Divine work, like contacting deities.
Or aligning the soul with the divine. The Chaldean oracles, for example, were seen as symbola that needed allegorical interpretation. Engaging with them wasn't just intellectual, it was a practice aimed at the salvation of the soul. That's theurgy.
So magic as spiritual practice.
Yes. And it included defense, too. Some Chaldean texts specifically contained conjurations and formulas designed to repel wicked spirits or demons, described as entities that actively desire the society of the humane soul. So spiritual protection was part of the work.
And this involved invoking higher beings, like angels. Texts like the Sefer Raziel detail this.
Exactly. The Sefer Raziel and similar texts are full of angelic hierarchies and invocations. The 4 great archangels are constantly called upon: Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel.
The famous 4?
Yes. The sources even note historical interactions, like Michael supposedly appearing to the Elizabethan mage John Dee. Gabriel is listed in some Gnostic influence lists as a guardian of the higher Aeons, alongside figures like Samlo and Abraxas, showing that blend of traditions.
What about Raphael?
Raphael is often invoked specifically on the 4th day of the week, Wednesday, which corresponds to the planet Mercury. It shows how tightly the angelic hierarchies were mapped onto planetary correspondences. These angels weren't just messengers. They were seen as eternal administrators, beings who have reigned, do reign, and shall reign for your...
Wow. Okay, one more system. Geomancy. Divination using earth or dots. How does that fit the correspondence model?
Geomancy works with 16 figures generated by random processes, often involving dots in sand or on paper. These figures are grouped into elemental triplicities, fiery ones like Fortuna Major, airy ones like Fortuna Minor, watery ones like Acquisitio.
Okay, patterns formed by chance. But how is it divination?
The key idea is that the process isn't truly random. The art, the figures generated, have a natural obedience to the soul it fell for the projector.
Obedience to the soul of the person doing the divination.
Yes. When the diviner performs the operation with focused intent, with a great egress of desire, the patterns formed are believed to directly reflect and respond to the operator's inner state, their soul's question or desire. The physical outcome, the reading, manifests the internal spiritual energy. It's another form of microcosm reflecting macrocosm.
Okay, we've covered a massive amount of ground. Lineage, numbers, planets, magic, tying it all together. The ultimate goal seems to be accessing some kind of hidden knowledge, right? Represented by Daath on the Tree of Life.
Daath is the perfect symbol for that. It's the hidden sephira, not always shown on the tree. It means knowledge, but not just intellectual facts. It lies in the abyss, the gap between the higher divine triad and the lower seven Sephiroth.
Crossing the abyss.
Right, and the sources emphasize that the deepest secrets, the real gnosis, can't just be figured out by the rational mind alone. They escape minds until the interior understanding is born. You need intuition, that permanent region of our nature. It requires multiple vision, the ability to see beyond the literal, to read the symbols allegorically.
This journey towards union, henosis, it also seems tied up with cycles, doesn't it? Like the Ouroboros and reincarnation.
Absolutely. The Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail, is the perfect symbol for eternal cycles, self-renewal, the idea that the end is the beginning. And reincarnation is definitely present, especially in Gnostic thought and its astrological connections.
How does astrology connect to reincarnation?
Specifically through the lunar nodes. The South Node, sometimes called the Dragon's Tail or Cauda Draconis, is often interpreted negatively in natal astrology. Why? Because it's seen as pointing directly to your karma, the unresolved issues, patterns, and consequences you've carried over from past lives into this one. It's the baggage you bring with you.
So your birth chart maps your karmic inheritance.
That's one way to look at it. So the overall goal, whether you call it henosis, like Plotinus, that identification of the soul with the Godhead within, or a salvation through theurgy, or achieving gnosis, it involves working through these cycles, understanding your karma, and ultimately unifying the self with the divine source.
And the ultimate achievement of this work, the physical or spiritual endpoint, is the grand arcanum, the philosopher's stone.
Yes, the stone represents the successful completion. Physical perfection, spiritual perfection, incorruptibility, enlightenment, all rolled into one. It's the substance or state that signifies the great work is done.
And this connects to traditions like the Rosicrucians and their rose logic. What was that about?
The Rosicrucians, with their emblem of a rose on a cross, symbolized this perfected wisdom, this union of opposites. They claimed their teachings held the key to recovering the Adamic language.
The original language, before Babel.
Exactly. The pure, uncorrupted language, supposedly spoken by Adam, through which he perfectly understood and could command nature. They believed mastering this language would unlock the true hidden meanings in the Bible and all sacred texts.
So mastering the Adamic language is like mastering those 22 letters and 231 gates we talked about earlier.
You could definitely see it that way. It's about getting back to the original creative power of language, understanding the fundamental formulas of creation. Achieving that would be synonymous with achieving the grand arcanum, completing the work, reaching that state of perfection.
Okay. So, wrapping this immense journey up, what a web. We've seen how Hermes Trismegistus is linked back to Enoch and Noah carrying this primordial wisdom, how the human body itself, down to fingers and toes, mirrors the cosmic structure of the Sephiroth.
And how the quest for the Philosopher's Stone isn't just about chemistry, but this profound spiritual journey towards henosis, toward that union with the divine spark within.
The sheer consistency across cultures and centuries is staggering.
It is. And the key takeaway for you listening to this is that these weren't just disconnected myths or superstitions to the people who believed them. They formed a single cohesive theory of everything. They believed they had mapped the operating system of reality.
A map linking us to the cosmos.
Precisely. Linking the microcosm, the macrocosm, the universe, through laws of number, geometry, planetary influence laws that govern not just the stars, but your character, your fate, your potential for spiritual growth. Nothing was random. Everything had meaning and correspondence.
Everything is a structured reflection.
Exactly. And that leads to the final thought. The sources mention that the ancient Greeks sometimes called the spheres of the very elements earth, water, air, fire, wholenesses. The word is holitates, complete perfect expressions of spiritual law in themselves.
Holitates.
Nolitates. So if the external world really is just a phenomenal outward expression of incarnating spirit, as these traditions suggest, what specific thing in your own daily life, maybe something mundane you overlook, could actually be acting as a perfect, complete expression of spiritual law? what's waiting right in front of you to be recognized as a divine holotate.
Something to think about. A challenging note to end on?
That's the invitation, isn't it? To see the sacred in the ordinary, the macrocosm and the microcosm of your own experience. That's the knowledge these traditions ultimately point towards.